2 days before Christmas, I got up early and went straight to the farmer's market, filling a big wicker basket with the freshest things I could find. Back at the house, I started making my daughter Sophia's favorite dishes: roast chicken with herbs and lemon and rich, creamy mashed potatoes. The whole place filled with the warm smell of garlic and roasted thyme. My heart thudded with anticipation. I spread the tablecloth, fluffed the pillows on the couch, and sat down like a kid waiting for a Christmas present, my eyes fixed on the front door. Sophia had just finished her first full-time job out of college. She insisted on working right up until the very last day to make a good impression on her boss. I'd always known how hard-working she was. When the front door opened, I jumped up, my arms half lifted, ready for a hug. But she didn't look at me. She ran straight into her father Richard's arms, practically leaping. "Dad, I got a bonus this year, $5,000, she said. Richard lit up like a Christmas tree, his face full of pride. He gave her a little pat on the head. "My girl, I'm so proud of you." Right after that, Henry and Evelyn, my in-laws, rushed in with glowing faces. "Sophia, you're the pride of the whole family," Evelyn said, all admiration. I stood to the side, watching them crowd around my daughter. Of course I was happy for her, why wouldn't I be? But there was a quiet ache, like I'd been forgotten. After all, I'd raised her. I stepped forward, took her hand, and smiled. "Long day, huh? Are you hungry? I made your favorites. Want me to heat them up?" She didn't look at me. She snapped, irritated. "Mom, stop asking those pointless questions." Then she bent down, unzipped her suitcase with an excited, bright face, pulled out a neat stack of envelopes, and set them on the coffee table like she was about to announce winners. Right on cue, Hugh, Richard's brother, and his wife Elise came in. Their eyes went straight to the envelopes. "Oh, Sophia, you're really doing well for yourself," Hugh said, genuinely impressed. "I bet those are gifts for everyone. How thoughtful." Elise leapt forward and hugged Sophia tight. "I missed you so much." I was stunned. In that moment I understood. She could call anyone family, anyone, except me. Everyone gathered round. Sophia cleared her throat and beamed. "To thank everyone for supporting me this year, I got a gift for each of you. This one is for Dad, a Visa gift card worth $5,000. Grandma and Grandpa get spa vouchers for $300 each. The aunts and uncles get fancy grocery cards for $200. I stood frozen as she handed them out, smiling proudly. Elise touched her shoulder and whispered, "Sweetie, I think you forgot someone." Sophia smacked her forehead playfully, like she'd just remembered. "Oh my gosh, you're right. There's probably one more thing in my bag." My heart lifted. She'd remembered me? Maybe she'd saved mine for last. Maybe it would be something special. I reached out just as she bent down to pick up our little dog, Luna, cradling her like a baby. She tucked the last envelope into Luna's sweater and cooed, "This one's for you, Luna, for being such a good girl this year." I stood there stunned, my smile frozen, my hand hanging useless in the air. After a moment I asked quietly, "Sophia, what about me?" She turned, her voice soft but cutting. "You stay home all day. You don't work. You don't understand how exhausting my job is. You cook and clean, that's your choice. You didn't help me with anything important. Why would I give you a present?" Elise pulled her down onto the chair and whispered for her to stop, but Sophia wasn't finished. She smiled, reached into her bag again, and produced another surprise. "Oh, guess what? I booked tickets for all of us to go to Hawaii for New Year's. We leave tomorrow night." I was quiet, thinking, no gift is fine. At least we'll go together. Maybe this was her way of showing she cared. I started rifling through the other envelopes to find my ticket, but there was no ticket for me. I looked at her, confused. She lifted her chin as if giving an order. "Mom, you're not coming. I need you to stay and watch Luna. She'd be so sad alone, and you're perfect for that." That was the moment I felt myself break. To my daughter, I was nothing, not even worth a plane ticket. Anger rose in my chest. I jerked my arm and the cookie tray crashed to the floor. The sound split the room like a fire alarm. Evelyn shouted, "Michelle, what are you doing?" Henry frowned. "You've ruined the evening." "What are you trying to do?" Evelyn hissed to Richard. Marrying someone like this was a disaster from the start. Sophia blinked, then frowned. "Come on, Mom, it's just a trip to Hawaii. I'll take you next year when I get another bonus." Now everyone's upset. "Happy?" Hugh opened his mouth to say something, but Elise grabbed his hand and shook her head. I let out a cold, bitter laugh. "So I have to break something to get noticed?" Richard's face darkened, his patience gone. He pointed at the broken tray. "Do you realize how ridiculous you're being? This was supposed to be a happy family gathering and you've ruined it." His voice was tight. "If you can't handle it, then leave. Nobody's stopping you." How ironic. I wasn't family. I was the unpaid housekeeper, the dog watcher, the cook, the cleaner, and I was being dismissed. I ripped off my apron, flung it aside, and stormed into the bedroom, furious. I shoved clothes into a bag, grabbed my wallet and papers. As I turned to go, Elise ran after me and grabbed my arm. "Michelle, don't do this. It's late." "Where are you going?" she snapped to Sophia. "Tell your mother not to go like this." Sophia didn't get up. She slumped back on the couch, eyes distant, lips curled with contempt. "Let her go. She always does this. She'll be back tomorrow." I stood there, 20 years of love and sacrifice folded into that sentence. If my mother had heard the way they talked to me that night, her heart would have broken. I pulled my hand away from Elise, said nothing, and walked straight out the door. On the sidewalk, I called my mother Beatrice. "Mom," I said, my voice hard and hollow, "I'm not coming home for the holidays. I need some time. I might be away for a while." She hesitated a moment, then replied gently, "That sounds like a good idea, sweetheart. A change of scenery will do you good. Be careful." Then she added, "Remember I told you I was thinking about selling the old house? Well, it's done. The sale went through and the money's in the account. I'll send you something." She sensed something was wrong but didn't press. She just supported me in silence. I said softly, "Mom, I'm okay. I don't need anything right now, but thank you. If I do need anything, I'll tell you. Thank you for always being there." I could almost hear her nod over the phone. 10 minutes later, a notification popped up. She'd transferred $50,000 into my account with a note, "For my dear daughter, enjoy." The best thing about having a supportive mother is that she gives you the courage to leave what no longer honors you. That night, I checked into a boutique hotel downtown. For the first time in ages, I lay in a bed that was truly mine and closed my eyes in peace. The next morning, I sat by the hotel window with a cup of coffee when my phone rang. It was Richard. I hesitated, then answered. His voice was low and angry. "Michelle, how long are you going to keep this up? Come home now." "I stopped by your mother's and she said you didn't show. I don't care where you are. Just come back." I said nothing and hung up. Who did he think I was, an everyone downed on-call housekeeper he could summon with a snap? A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a string of messages from Sophia. "Mom, don't you think you're a little old to be doing this? Just disappearing to get attention? So childish. We fly to Hawaii tonight. If you're not back, who's watching Luna? If anything happens to her, I'll never forgive you." I read the messages and my mouth twisted into a bitter smile. This was my daughter, the child I raised with my own hands, talking to me like that. Once I'd thought she was a treasure. Now she looked at me as a burden, as the help. Tears came again, but this time I let them fall, and I promised myself it would be the last time. I remembered when she was little, sweet and full of love, pressing her arms around my neck and whispering, "Mom, you're the best mom in the world. When I grow up, I'll buy you the prettiest dress." I can still picture her then, soft and smiling in my arms. But after high school, she drifted away. Her grades slipped. Richard said she needed more attention at home and pressured me to quit my job. I resigned without a second thought. I became a full-time mother, putting everything else aside for her, but as she grew up, she got colder and more distant. I still remember the day she stormed into the house, furious. "Don't come to parent-teacher conferences anymore. Everyone knows you're just a homemaker. It's embarrassing. You can't help me with calculus. What's the point of you staying home all day? You don't bring in money and you always argue with Dad." Time and again I told myself she was young, one day she'd understand. I waited through her high school years and then college. I thought when she stepped into the real world she'd see what it all meant, but she didn't. That was the reward for 20 years of quiet, invisible sacrifice. Now I looked at a daughter I barely recognized. That New Year's morning, Sophia sent a string of final messages. "Congrats, Mom. You've officially ruined everyone's plans. We leave at noon. Don't bother coming back. If you're not home, don't expect to be my mother anymore." Perfect. Because I was about to stop being her mother, too. I opened my email and sent Richard the divorce papers I'd been quietly preparing for weeks. One line in the body, "Please sign. If you refuse, I will file." Then I turned off my phone, grabbed my luggage, and went to the airport. I didn't look back. I took a flight to Iceland, a land of ice and quiet, to enjoy the first clear vacation of my life. When Richard got the papers, panic hit him like a brick. He called me over and over and heard only the cold recording. "The number you have reached is currently unavailable." He paced the room, his face taut with anger. Sophia, meanwhile, remained composed, even smug. She put a hand on her father's shoulder and said confidently, "Dad, don't worry. This is just her trying to make us soften." Classic manipulation. She's been a stay-at-home mom for years, no friends, no job. Do you really think she'd go through with a divorce? Let her be for a while. She'll learn her lesson who's really in charge here. Richard's parents sat across from them, nodding. Evelyn murmured, "She's been spoiled." Henry sneered, "Divorce? How long do you think she'll last without our son?" And so the whole family cheerfully grabbed their suitcases and headed to the airport as if nothing had happened. That night, Sophia posted a photo from the hotel restaurant. Glasses of champagne raised, big radiant smiles, a picture-perfect family holiday. I looked at the photo and turned off my phone. I, meanwhile, sat with a few new friends wrapped in heavy coats around a crackling fire in the snow. Snowflakes drifted around us, and above, the Icelandic sky danced with the northern lights. We clinked beer bottles and laughed, with no roles to play, no burdens, just freedom, the kind I hadn't felt in 20 years. I let out a small laugh to myself and whispered, "Being young is great, but being free is even better." I snapped a few photos of the aurora and posted one to Instagram with a simple caption, "Feels like a dream. You only have one life. Live it for yourself." In less than a minute, a voicemail from Sophia popped up, Her voice was high and furious. "How could you? You used Dad's money to go on a trip by yourself? I worked all year and barely saved anything, and you just blow money like that? You don't care about us. You're selfish." I didn't listen to the whole message. I deleted it. She was right about one thing. I was selfish. And for the first time in my life, that selfishness made me feel lighter, like I could breathe and live on my own terms. I only wished I'd done it sooner. I posted another photo, my plane ticket to Norway. The caption read only 4 words: "Next stop, brighter skies." That was the moment Sophia truly broke down. She called non-stop, left dozens of messages demanding I answer, asking why I had left, why I was wasting money, why I was acting like a child. I didn't respond to a single one. Eventually, I blocked her number. Furious, she cut her 7-day vacation short and flew home after only 2. That night, she showed up at my mother's house and burst into tears in the living room. "Grandma, Mom is so selfish. She ran off overseas while we were trying to spend time together. She cut off contact and is spending all the money Dad worked for. Now she's blocked me. You have to make her come to her senses." My mother stayed silent for a long time, then lifted her head, her voice calm. "Let me ask you one thing. When your family flew to Hawaii, did anyone ask if your mother wanted to come?" Sophia froze, her lips trembling, but no words came. Richard jumped in. "You're mistaken." Michelle said she didn't want to go. She wanted to save money. My mother let out a dry laugh. "How interesting. You just said she's wasteful, and now she's frugal. So which is it? Let me be clear, you don't get to belittle my daughter. She has me, and as long as she has me, she doesn't need anyone's pity. She doesn't need anything, least of all your spare change." Then my mother stood, pointed toward the door, and said firmly, "Get out of my house." Richard and Sophia left in heavy silence. Once they were in the car, Richard said quietly, "Wait, her mom mentioned selling the old house. From the way she talked today, I think she sold it." Sophia's face went pale. "What? Grandma sold the house? That place was worth a fortune. Now I get it. Mom filed for divorce to take that money and disappear. We can't let that happen. We have to get it back." From that day on, Sophia changed. She wasn't the smug girl I once knew. She kept texting, asking where I was, what the weather was like, whether I was enjoying the trip, when I'd be back, like sweet words could erase everything she'd said. She thought I'd cave, like always. But not this time. I stayed silent for days. Then one night, she sent a voice message, her voice trembling through tears. "Mom, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was just so angry. I didn't think you'd really leave. Please come home. I promise I'll change. Please come back." I listened and smiled quietly. She still didn't understand. I didn't leave because of a plane ticket. I left because I finally saw the truth of my place in that family, and I would never go back. I deleted the message and kept living. A month later, I returned home. The moment I stepped through the door, Richard looked like a drowning man who had just seen a lifeline. His hands shook as he called our daughter. "She's back. Get home now. See? I told you she wouldn't go through with it. If she really files for divorce, we'll lose $50,000. Sophia arrived almost immediately. When she saw me, she ran forward with open arms. "Mom, you're finally home. I missed you so much." I raised my hand, stopping her mid-step, then calmly pulled a stack of papers from my bag and placed them on the table. My voice was steady. "Sign them. Keep the house, the car, and your daughter. I don't want anything." Richard's smile vanished, his face drained of color. "Michelle, Are you insane? Do you know how many years I've worked for this? You've lived comfortably for 2 decades, and now, just because you feel left out, you're throwing it all away? You think that's worth destroying a marriage over?" I looked him straight in the eyes, then flicked the papers back onto the table. "You think being a homemaker is easy? You think Sophia became who she is by chance? You forced me to quit my job so I could stay home, and for years you made me feel worthless because I didn't bring in a paycheck. Your parents criticized me whenever they could, and you never once stood up for me. Our daughter heard it all, heard you call me a freeloader." Richard's face twisted, his tone venomous. "Cut the drama. None of this would have happened if your mother hadn't given you that money. That's the real issue." Sophia, who had been pretending to feel remorse, suddenly flared up. "This is ridiculous. Don't think that just because you've got a little money now you can look down on us. Have you ever taken a good look at yourself?" I met her gaze, my voice cold as ice. "Sophia, I just hope one day you learn to think for yourself instead of parroting every word your father says. I gave everything to raise you, but not so you could treat me like this." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I turned to both of them and said slowly, clearly, "If you don't sign, I'll take it to court. Either way, I'm ready." Then I opened the door and walked out. I didn't look back, not once, because I knew I wasn't the woman chained to a kitchen anymore. I was free, and I was never coming back. The next morning, Richard and Sophia went to my mother's house. She told me later they arrived with the same faces, the same tone, just a different backdrop. The day before, they'd played the victims with me. Now they were trying to go through her, hoping she'd convince me otherwise. Like father, like daughter, what a perfect pair. My mother didn't even let them step inside. She stood at the doorway, set her warm porcelain coffee cup down on the hall table, and said evenly, "She's fine. She's just tired of years of emotional manipulation." Sophia froze, then forced a smile more awkward than sincere. "Grandma, we're just worried Mom might do something impulsive, financially." Richard jumped in quickly. "Exactly. We're only trying to protect the family's assets." My mother smiled softly, but it wasn't a smile anyone would want to see. "Ah, I see," she said, her tone gentle but sharp as a blade. "You came to check what she's doing with the money, didn't you?" They fumbled for words, but she didn't give them a chance. "I've spoken to the lawyer already. Michelle is an adult. She has full control over her decisions. And if either of you came here hoping to squeeze something out of me, don't waste your time." She paused, her next words half reminder, half warning. "Stop seeing her as a weak housewife. She knows how to protect herself now legally." The door didn't slam, but it closed with a cold finality. That afternoon, I sat for hours in my mother's study. On the desk were stacks of legal documents, statements, trust papers, financial records. I stared at them for a long time, barely believing what I saw. For the first time in my life, the papers in front of me weren't being pushed across the table with a sticky note saying, "Sign here." They were mine. And the person making the decisions was me. My mother stood by the bookshelf holding a red teacup, her voice firm. "This money was meant for your future, to keep you safe in old age." She paused, meeting my eyes, those time-lined but steady eyes. "But it seems you need it now." She came and sat beside me, gently placing her hand on mine. "Michelle, your father and I realized it too late. By the time we learned to protect ourselves, there wasn't much left, but you still have a chance." A lump rose in my throat. My eyes were dry, not because it didn't hurt, but because the pain had gone beyond tears. I picked up the pen and signed my name, not for Richard's life insurance, not for a joint loan or a shared asset. I signed as the sole owner of the trust. My hand didn't shake. That day, I did what I should have done long ago. I froze every joint account with Richard. For the first time in 10 years, I opened a bank account solely in my own name. I updated my will, removing every trace of Richard and Sophia. I emailed Joanna, my college friend and attorney, with detailed divorce instructions. Joanna had the memory of a textbook and the loyalty of a sister. I also called my financial advisor to activate a new security layer. Every transaction now required my personal confirmation. A week later, Sophia reached out again. This time it was a cheerful voicemail, her tone light and breezy as if nothing had ever happened. "Mom, it's amazing that you traveled alone to Iceland and Norway. The photos are gorgeous. Next time, let's go somewhere even farther together." I didn't reply. The next day, another message, her voice rougher, tighter. "Mom, I'm not doing so well. There's a round of layoffs at work. I'm thinking maybe I'll move in with you for a while." Still, I said nothing. I wanted to see how long she could keep up the act. 2 days later, she sent a screenshot of her credit card statement with a message, "My card's maxed out. Wish I'd learned to save better. I miss you." I almost laughed. Did she miss me or my money? The apologies, the tears, they were all part of an old script, and I knew what came next. If I showed even a hint of weakness, she'd push further. As expected, she called a few days later. The moment I picked up, I heard her crying. "Mom, I can't take it anymore. I fell down the stairs outside my building. No one helped me. I just wanted to call you." I stayed silent. She waited, then her tone turned sharp. "Mom, did you change your bank password? I tried to log in to pay a bill and it didn't work." I smiled, my voice calm. "I upgraded the security. The bank advised it since there've been a lot of identity theft cases lately." Her voice shot up an octave. "Mom, I'm your daughter. Are you hiding your accounts from me?" I didn't argue. "If you really want to help, send me those documents I asked for weeks ago, and don't ever touch my accounts again." Silence. Then I heard her bitter laugh. "Fine. So I'm a stranger now?" I answered coolly. "You became a stranger the moment you treated me like an ATM." There was a loud bang, probably her slamming the phone on a table. Then she screamed, "You think you're so noble? That trust isn't just yours. You've lived off Dad's money your whole life, and now you want to take it all because of a divorce?" And just like that, the truth came out. She didn't want reconciliation. She wanted the money, the control. I pressed record, my voice steady and deliberate. "Sophia, you do realize this call is being recorded, right? I'll be sending it to my lawyer as evidence for a no-contact order." Silence on the other end. Then I heard her break, sobbing hard. "You're so cruel. Don't you remember when I had that high fever and you stayed up all night beside my bed? Don't those memories mean anything?" I took a deep breath and kept my voice soft. I remember not daring to leave, even to get water, afraid you'd wake up and not see me there. I remember when you were 7, you said you'd buy me a house. When you were 10, you promised to take me to Hawaii. But I also remember when you said I was embarrassing because I was just a housewife. When you told me not to come to school meetings, that I was useless, that I didn't earn money and didn't deserve respect. She shouted into the phone, "So you're cutting me off over that? You're throwing everything away?" I replied in a low, clear tone, "No. I'm cutting you off because you turned my love into a tool, because you believed affection was something to be traded. I can forgive immaturity, but I will never again let myself be controlled by guilt." I hung up and blocked her on every platform. No goodbye, no hesitation. only silence, the kind I had finally reclaimed for myself. That night, I opened the fridge and saw the jar of pickles I'd made the day before. I'd made them thinking of Sophia, just in case she showed up to apologize one more time. I picked up the jar, walked to the trash, and dropped it in. I wasn't holding on to anything anymore, not even the hope she'd come back. The next morning, while I was having breakfast, Joanna, my lawyer, called. "Michelle, Richard just filed a petition," she said. "He's demanding a share of your trust fund." Joanna paused, then continued. "He's arguing that the money your mother transferred to you was received during the marriage, so it should count as marital property." I laughed softly. Of course he would. And of course he could sink that low. But the truth was different. The money my mother sent had been transferred after I'd already left home and legally separated from Richard. It wasn't a wedding gift, nor was it a shared investment. She sent it 2 months earlier, when she saw I was at my lowest point, with a single note, for my daughter's life and for herself. Everything was documented: the date, the receipt, the blot, transaction record. And now Richard was trying to twist it, turning it into marital property simply because our divorce hadn't been finalized yet. I stayed silent as I flipped through the stack of so-called evidence his attorney had submitted. It was unbelievable. Even the word shameless didn't do it justice. His complaint read, "Although the funds were transferred by the petitioner's mother-in-law, the transaction occurred while the marriage was still legally valid. Therefore, both parties have the right to access and share the asset." And in the final paragraph, he'd even written, "The petitioner does not object to the funds being used for family support and the future needs of our daughter." Family support, or financing his next journey of self-discovery. Joanna and I got to work immediately. We filed every document, the transfer date, made 2 weeks after I moved out, the account solely in my name, with no access granted to Richard, and most importantly, the message my mother had sent that day, which I'd saved. "Don't give him a single cent. For the first time in your life, use this money for yourself." This wasn't about money anymore. Richard wasn't afraid of divorce. He was afraid of losing control of me and of losing the money. During the hearing, he showed up in the same gray suit he'd worn at our wedding. Back then, he'd used it to marry me. Now he wore it hoping to take whatever he still could. He stood, trying to sound reasonable. "I just want to clarify what counts as marital assets. We both have responsibilities toward our daughter." Joanna stood calmly, opened her folder, and spoke with precise, cutting clarity. "First, this sum is a personal gift from Mrs. Harris's mother, given exclusively to her. Second, the transaction took place after the couple had legally separated. Mr. Harris had no management authority over it. Third, Mr. Harris has a documented history of financial misconduct, including unauthorized loans and fund transfers, undermining the marital financial trust. All evidence has been provided." She laid the printed papers on the table, screenshots of the transactions, the transfer note, my mother's original message, and most damning of all, a copy of a loan agreement Richard had once pressured me to sign quickly, assuming I hadn't read the fine print. I heard him breathing faster. He hadn't expected me to keep everything. He never thought those documents he'd shoved in front of me would one day become evidence against him. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, read through the file and then looked up. Her voice was clear and firm. "This money is a personal gift from Mrs. Harris's mother, transferred after legal separation. Mr. Harris has no lawful claim to it. In other words, Richard, keep your hands off my money." Outside the courthouse, Joanna handed me a coffee. We sat on the stone steps. watching Richard argue with his attorney. She smiled. "You know what he's really afraid of?" I took a sip. "Tell me." Joanna chuckled. "He's not afraid of losing money. He's afraid of you. Afraid that now you can spend your own money without asking permission." I let out a quiet laugh. She was right. What terrified him wasn't the divorce, it was the fact that I'd left and was living better than him. I looked down at the paper in my hands, the bold words printed across the top, "Divorce decree officially granted." Those 5 simple words felt more peaceful than any promise he'd ever made. I didn't go home that day. Instead, I stopped by the city library and filled out a volunteer application. It had once been my dream job helping people find what they need, recommending books, guiding anyone who struggled with technology. When I told Richard about it years ago, he scoffed. "How much could that kind of job even pay? You're better off staying home with Sophia." So I shelved the dream. But now, I was living for myself. I thought, it's time to live the life I once imagined. 3 days later, I sat at the help desk beside the library's big window. My first visitor was an elderly woman asking how to print her Social Security documents. I patiently walked her through every step, teaching her how to recognize the real website and print her medication list. Before leaving, she squeezed my hand and said, "You're more patient than my daughter." I smiled. I'd heard that before, but back then, it meant nothing because my own family never believed in me. Now it did. Now I had earned it myself. On the way home, I sat on a wooden bench in the park near my apartment. An older woman passed by, leaning on her walker, glanced at the lunchbox in my hand and asked, "Eating alone?" I nodded. She smiled. "I divorced at 60. Been living alone for 20 years now. Dinner just keeps getting better." I laughed. "Weren't you scared back then?" She looked me straight in the eyes, her smile strong and steady. "Of course I was, but fear's still better than living with someone who treats you like their assistant." I didn't know her name, and she didn't know my story. But for a brief moment, we sat there together, 2 women, once broken, now warmed again by the same sunlight. That evening, I got an email from Richard. Just one line. "Sophia is falling apart. She says this divorce is destroying her." I didn't reply. I didn't even open the attachment. I knew what he was doing, trying once more to guilt me into coming back. But I'd learned something. Not every child deserves forgiveness. A few weeks later, Richard vanished from social media. When I saw that, I knew he'd finally lost. But I hadn't realized how far his downfall would go. Without the image of a perfect husband to show off, every polite smile at church disappeared. People who once greeted him now looked away. Social reputation is fragile, one gust of wind, and it crumbles. Then his health declined. The back pain he'd ignored for years worsened. No one reminded him to eat or take his medication. Eventually, he was removed from the company board. The official reason was short: concerns about personal credit. All those years he'd used my name as guarantor, mixing personal and company funds, only worked because he still had the mask of a stable family man and a forgiving wife. Now, even the court didn't trust him, much less the board. He tried turning to Sophia for help, but she was already drowning in the mess she'd made herself. After losing her job, Sophia launched a women's empowerment coaching service, teaching others how to live with confidence and independence. The irony was painful. She'd never learned it for herself. Her ex-fiancé got engaged to someone else just a week after their breakup. Sophia fell apart, filmed herself crying, and posted it online. But her sad story wasn't about a lost love, it was about me. "How could my mother abandon me like this?" she wrote. No one believed her. The comments split into two camps. One said, "Your mom didn't abandon you. She finally chose herself." The other, anonymous users, reposted my photo, the one under the northern lights in Iceland, coat billowing in the wind, captioned, "This woman didn't run away. She came home to herself." Someone liked that comment. It was me. I didn't answer Sophia's calls or open any more emails from Richard. They no longer deserved my time. The only link left between us was a single legal account. I turned that story into a podcast episode and sent it to a show about women reinventing themselves after retirement. The host closed the episode with, "This story comes from Michelle Harris, who wants to remind you, a woman isn't born to fade into the background of her family or society. She's born to shine." The episode got far more plays than I expected. Hundreds of comments came in, but one stopped me cold. I made my daughter listen to this story. She cried not out of sadness, but because she wanted to try doing the same. She didn't disappear. She came back to herself. That spring, I joined a group of local volunteers for a forest trail walk on the city's west side. Sneakers muddy, water bottle in hand, I chatted with a few women as we hiked. Halfway through, one of them touched my arm and asked, "You're Michelle, right?" When I nodded, she smiled. "You did what so many of us were afraid to do." I held her hand for a moment, saying nothing, because at that instant I realized I wasn't the woman sobbing in a kitchen, begging to be free anymore. I was the one who stood up, smiled, and became strong enough to help someone else take their first step. At that moment I thought of my mother, Beatrice, and of the first time I brought Richard home. They were newly engaged then, still wrapped in the sweetness of first love. They sat on the porch while she carried out the cake she'd baked that morning. I remember my eyes sparkling as I told her, "Richard is so responsible, so family-oriented." But Beatrice saw something different. Richard smiled at me, not at her. He was polite, yes, but distant and formal, never quite genuine. At dinner, he talked about plans and long work hours, but never once spoke about responsibility or what he would offer our family. It was always, "Michelle understands me, and she's so easygoing." He said it like praise, but Beatrice read the subtext. He meant I was easy to control. He was attentive to me in a way that felt performative. With her, there was never a real thank you. When the meal ended and Beatrice began clearing plates, he didn't even look up. She told me then, "He might like me, but he didn't truly respect me, not our family." She never interfered. Choosing a husband wasn't her place. Her role, as she put it, was to make sure I always had a way back, a safe place to land if the road I chose ever broke. And she kept that promise for years. She watched me swallow each disappointment, each heavy silence at dinner when my opinions were ignored and my efforts went unacknowledged. She watched me live a version of marriage she knew all too well. When my mother looked at me now, she saw the same shadows she had once carried. But this time the story would end differently. She was no longer the woman standing behind an ironing board, waiting quietly. She became the one standing at the door, keeping out the people who never saw my worth. The year I got married, she gave me her wedding dress and her jewelry. I stood there holding her hand, tears streaming. "Mom, I'm going to have a good life," I told her then. She cried too, but not from joy. Deep down she'd heard a whisper, "She's going to suffer." After Sophia was born, my mother visited sometimes to help with the baby and meals. I was exhausted, barely finishing a sentence before nodding off. Richard acted courteous enough, but there was a tone in his voice that made my mother feel like an overstaying guest. One evening at dinner, my mother suggested gently, Sophia's cough might get better with a warm compress at night. Richard didn't bother to look up. All kids cough, he said flatly. It's normal. Don't worry about it. When I mentioned thinking about a part-time job, he cut me off. Your body isn't what it used to be. You should just rest at home. And one night, he joked across the table, isn't it natural for a mother-in-law to help with the baby? It's not like she's busy with anything else. He laughed, but my mother felt the words like lead. She said nothing then because she knew what she was seeing, not carelessness, but a quiet, practiced control cloaked in charm. There's one memory she never stopped telling me about. She was washing dishes when little Sophia barreled in, crying for chocolate. My mother told her calmly, "You can have some after dinner." Sophia screamed, "Why should I listen to you? Dad says you're just the maid." I heard it. My face froze, and I whispered, "I'm sorry. I'll talk to her." My mother remembers the breaking point in that moment. Not the child's words, but the way I had learned to apologize for everyone but myself, to carry other people's burdens as if they were my own. I never raised my voice at Richard, never confronted his parents. I swallowed the pain, smiled through it, treated injustice as part of marriage. Richard had never washed a dish or changed a diaper. Every time he lifted a broom, people praised him as if he were the model husband. Meanwhile, I became unpaid labor, no breaks, no recognition, no rest. One night my mother woke for a glass of water and heard them arguing. Richard shouted, "For God's sake, can you stop crying every time your mother's here? You act like you have a right to be upset." She froze in the hallway, hands trembling. My mother slept the rest of that night, fearing that by morning I would be smiling again, pretending nothing had happened. On those sleepless nights, she pulled out an old notebook and wrote. The first line she wrote over and over was, "My daughter has forgotten she deserves to be loved too." She told me she wrote every day not to accuse, but to remind herself that one day I might wake up. And she wanted to be the first to tell me, "You're not crazy, you're not selfish, you're finally awake." And that day came. When I called her to say I wouldn't be home for Christmas, that I was going away for a while, my voice was different. No crying, no bitterness, just calm. "Mom," I said softly, "I won't be home for Christmas. I'm going away for a while." She paused a few seconds and replied, "Good for you, sweetheart. A trip will do you good." That evening she sat alone, holding the faller, same old teacup she'd used for 10 years. Her hands felt cold, like she was holding a stone. She understood that the trip I mentioned wasn't a vacation, it was an escape. She knew the true nature of Richard and Sophia, those two I'd seen through long ago. That call wasn't a plea, it was freedom. It was the moment I finally allowed myself to let go. My mother stayed up all night, pulling out an old black leather notebook she kept hidden under the bed. Inside were notes about the money she'd quietly saved after selling our old family home. She'd always told herself it was for her old age, but that night she saw another purpose. I needed that money to live, to leave, to start over. Not because I couldn't earn money, but because I needed a foundation that truly belonged to me. The next morning, my mother went to the bank. When the clerk asked if she wanted a note added to the transfer, she told him, "Yes, write this, for my daughter's life. Non-refundable." That was when she realized what she had been waiting for all those years wasn't for me to change, it was for her to stop pretending she didn't see. She stopped being the silent mother on the sidelines. That night she added one more line to the notebook. "My daughter won't be home anymore, but at least now she's walking her own path. It won't be easy, but it's hers." She closed the book and turned off the light. Outside it was dark, but her heart was calm because she knew she had given me the safety net I'd never asked for, but always deserved. 3 days after I left the country, Richard and Sophia showed up at my mother's door. The rain had just stopped and the air still smelled of wet earth. They stood there smiling too brightly to be sincere. Sophia offered a neatly wrapped box of cinnamon cookies, my mother's favorite. My mother didn't take it. She stepped aside and let them in, not because she'd softened, but because she wanted to see what they were up to. As soon as the cookies hit the table, Richard spoke. "We heard Michelle's doing well. A little trip, right?" Sophia added. "She posted a photo under the northern lights. My friends were jealous." Then they cut to it. "We heard you sold your house and Michelle received the money." My mother set her teacup down and looked him straight in the eye. "Who told you that?" she asked. Richard hedged and then said they'd just heard it and worried I might be overwhelmed managing the money alone. Sophia leaned forward with a stiff smile. "We just want to help. We're younger. We understand investments. We could manage her finances better." My mother smiled, but not warmly. It was thin and sharp, like early winter ice. "You both know I was the one who gave that money to my daughter, don't you?" she said. They exchanged uneasy glances. "Did you think I'm some old fool who can be tricked by fake smiles and crocodile tears? My daughter fought hard to survive. Neither of you has the right to touch a cent of it." Richard's smile faded. He tried to call it a misunderstanding. My mother cut him off, voice firm as steel. "There's no misunderstanding. I've heard how you speak to my daughter, how you spent her money and still scolded her like a child. I heard you say, 'So you think you can act up just because your mother's here?' Did you think I didn't hear that?" Sophia shot up, slammed her hand on the table, and accused my mother of trying to ruin their marriage. My mother laughed, bitter and short. "Of course, she didn't say anything bad about you. She protected you. I won't. I protect my daughter." Then she walked them to the door. "I've said enough. If you come back, I'll call the police. Don't mistake age for weakness. I know exactly what I'm capable of." They froze, then left. When the lock clicked behind them, my mother breathed deeply. She knew I'd once been soft and likely to compromise at the last moment, but not anymore. I wasn't that woman. A few days later, she quietly went to court and sat in the back row, half hidden behind a pillar, watching me stand at the plaintiff's table in my tailored suit. I didn't cry or shake. Even when Richard's lawyer tried to twist the truth and rattle me with questions, I answered clearly and calmly. My voice was steady and my eyes unwavering. I wasn't the woman who swallowed her tears. I'd become a sword forged by years of silence, and that day I drew it to free myself. My mother's eyes blurred, not from sadness but from pride. After the hearing, she sat on a cold stone bench and let the wind wash over her face. She told me she hadn't been waiting for me to win the case so much as to see me stand tall, without apology or fear. That night I sent her a voice message with the wind in the background. "Mom, don't worry about me. I'm okay." She replayed that message again and again and smiled. The next morning she walked into the senior center. She had passed for years but never entered. She had always said she needed to stay home in case I ever needed her. Now she understood I didn't need a mother standing in the shadows. I had become my own support. She signed up for a pottery class and a community memoir group. On the first day, the instructor asked everyone to write a sentence that defined them. My mother wrote, "The decision I'm proudest of in my life wasn't giving birth to her, it was standing by her when she needed it most." After class, an older woman touched her hand and asked who the sentence was about. "My daughter," she said. The woman smiled and told her I must be wonderful. My mother nodded. "She truly is." That night she slept soundly. No more dreams of silent, suffocating dinners. She knew I no longer needed her to step in, and she'd finally learned to step out. My mother told me she wasn't my escape. She was the strength I needed to move forward when it mattered most. Now I stand on my own, and she's begun her own new journey. Spring came, the flowers in her garden bloomed, and one morning she brewed a cup of tea and sent me a message. "Sweetheart, I'm doing fine too. Don't look back, keep walking your path." Maybe after all this, what I learned wasn't how to get revenge or claim victory, but that love and sacrifice need boundaries. We can spend our lives caring for others, but at some point we must ask who's caring for us. I used to think being a mother meant enduring everything in silence for the sake of peace. Now I know, sometimes silence only feeds the pain. When I chose to leave, it wasn't because I stopped loving my daughter. It was because I wanted to teach her the hardest truth I'd learned too late, that no one has the right to make you feel small in your own life. What do you think? Does love mean staying no matter what? Or are there times when walking away is the bravest kind of love? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you've lived through something like this, tell your story. I believe honest words help us find the strength to live more fully. Stay with me for the journeys ahead. Every story is another step toward understanding who we really are.